Welcome my friends to another Alliteration gaming video. My name is Levi and today I have something really cool that I want to go over with for you guys. I've been playing a Kamui Woods deck on the air symbol that I've been having such an absolute blast with that I just had to profile it out on the channel. So this deck was kind of born of a few interesting things all happening at once. Not too long ago, my good friend Daryl, or Komorebi if you know them by their screen names, was telling me about a really interesting idea they had inspired by Jose to mess around with Kamui on the air symbol, a bit of an unexplored territory for him, at least back in the Season 1 days. At the time, I was a little too occupied with other decks that I was working on, but now that I've kind of gotten those to a point that I'm comfortable with, I started venturing out into other endeavors, and I just kept looking at all of these beautiful air cards and remembering how much I loved the air symbol back in set 1, but I've really kind of grown past a lot of the characters that I enjoyed playing it on as I've become a much more defensive player. And then the idea kind of came to me to be playing a much more defensive Kamui Woods deck as a 7-hand size character who's great at blocking, but still getting to play all of my favorite cards on the air symbol. And so that's where the inspiration for this deck comes. Let's get right into it. The first thing we got to go over is, of course, Kamui himself. Kamui is a 7-hand size character with 20 health. He's got two really strong abilities. The first is you can commit him, and for the rest of the turn, your attacks get +1 damage, and your rival's attacks get -1 damage. This does stack. And then, every time an attack is blocked, so whether you're blocking your rival's attacks, or your rival is blocking your attacks, you get to ready him. The idea is that slowly over the course of the turn, all this damage reduction or damage pump just keeps stacking up and stacking up as you're blocking your rival's attacks, or as your rival is blocking your own attacks, and eventually things get so big and so out of hand that you just slowly ensnare them kind of in the prison of thorns. It's Kamui's whole thing. And then of course, if you're not worried about the damage penalties or buffs actually stacking, you can just sit there and constantly commit him like a foundation as a cost and just keep readying him every time you block, because of course you can block, commit whatever you need to pass the checks, and then ready him right in response to that. So he's a really awesome character. He's a very simple character, but he goes a long way towards putting a lot of the work, and if you're really good with just the game's mechanics as a whole, Kamui is very powerful. But of course, as strong as Kamui is, your character is only as powerful as your main deck alongside it. So let's get into it. So starting off with the attacks, we got 4 copies of Zero Gravity Lift. This is going to be a 3 high for 6 throw that says if it goes to the momentum, it goes face up, and when it's in your momentum, you can remove it from the game to make your current attack float into your momentum after it resolves. So you just get to put the Ochako 1 response on basically any attack that you're playing, which is really strong. This is of course the best poke attack in our deck, and getting a couple of them in the momentum really sets us up for some super powerful chains as we try and set up our longer string turns. It's really nice with Kamui as well, because you can throw this down as your first attack, commit him, and then it'll be a 7 damage move, meaning it's going to deal 1 more damage on the roundup, and then if they block it, which they probably will because no one wants to take 7 to the face, you get to just re-ready him right back in response, and it's really strong. Zero Gravity Lift, even with all of the throw hate running around, still a really powerful card. Next, to go in tandem with it, we've got 4 copies of Meteor Shower. If you are familiar on this channel at all, you know that I love my Meteor Showers. This is a 4 high for 5 attack that says if it goes to the momentum, it goes face up, and you can discard a card to pick it up out of your momentum. And when you're playing it as an attack, you can trade any momentum for a copy of Meteor Shower in your discard pile. So of course, getting all of these in rotation is also going to be a big part of setting up your big long string turns late in the game once you go through your deck a lot. And of course, you know, this is very much just like a kind of good stuff air attack package. Kamui just plays it really well. And then of course stuff like Meteor, like when you're playing Kamui, you really just want a lot of attacks that are just there to bait blocks out and keep readying Kamui so that you can just keep playing your string of moves. And of course Meteor Shower is a very cheap expendable attack that it's really easy to play a slew of in succession. And so good card in general, but has a really good application within this deck. Next, we've got 4 copies of Electric Jolt. This is a really strong move. It's a 3-minute for 4. It's got EX2 and Stun 1. If it's completely blocked, it's still going to deal 1 damage, so it's always guaranteed momentum. And when it's in the momentum, you can flip it down to selectively commit a rival foundation. Once again, like Gravity Lift, another one of our really good pokes. Your rival never really wants to block this because, like, wow, if I block it, I still take 1 and Kamui gets to ready. That just seems really feels bad. So most of the time, it's super free damage. And then, of course, getting these set up in your momentum is one of the few ways you actually have in this deck to interact with your opponent's board while they're attacking you, which, as as a defensive 7-hand size character is really, really important. And then of course, if you're on the aggressive side of things, you can commit down their really, really key defensive pieces. The next card is our new inclusion from Crimson Rampage, and it's going to be 4 copies of Double Jab Pummel. This is such a powerful attack. It's only a 3 mid for 5, so it's really slow, but you want it to be blocked because it's got a combo enhance with a charge to give your next check +2 no matter what. And then if the attack is blocked, you get to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. And it's got a really powerful deadlock as well to give your next check +5. So this card's just really, really cracked. It's also a 1 high block, which is really, really, really nice. This card's just crazy. Once again, it's a matter of like, if I block it, he gets to draw 2, discard 2, and ready Kamui. That feels so bad, but also by the time it comes in, like it's gonna come in as the second move. It's probably a 6 damage move or a 7 damage move. If you Kamui on the first one, they block it. You Kamui on the second one, so it's really big. Your opponent does not want to take 7 in the face. They're gonna give you all of your free value, and it's probably just gonna help you find even more lines for your lethal turns. Next, we have our bombs, our finishers. We've got 4 copies of Indiscriminate Shock 1.3 million volts. You know this card, you love this card, this thing is crazy. It's a 3 low for 5, but it's going to get damage for every committed rival foundation. It's also got stun 1 on itself, and you can commit one of your own foundations to make your rival commit one of their foundations. So really, really, really powerful card. You know, you have like all of these just threatening strings of high zone attacks, and then they always have to also save the low block for this just absolute bomb of a card. It's also nice because your rival basically just always has to block this attack, so it's always just going to be a free ready on Kamui, and you can just really, like, once you start, like, if you can like chain these, having 2 of these in a row is like the most crazy thing, because it's like, well, if you held the 1 low block, okay, cool, did you hold the second one? Because that one's going to be even bigger and you're committed out, and it's just really, 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 really punishing position for your rival to be in. And then the last 2 attacks we have is 2 copies of Home Run Comet. This is like our alternative finisher. It's a 3 high for 4 with powerful 1, but that powerful rating is going to increase for every charge or high attack in your card pool, which is all of your attacks. And you can also shove one of your foundations into your momentum. This is a really, really, really sweet card. Again, it's like our alternate finisher to 1.3. They're the same speed, and they're usually going to result in like the same damage. I used to really not be a fan of Home Run Comet in these Meteor Shower focused builds, but this build is a little more open than that, and at the end of the day, even if you have no momentum once you get to the home run on the end, if there's like 4 or 5 charge attacks in your card pool at that point, because it does count itself as well, even just the 1 momentum with its own ability is going to be able to make it like probably like a 10-12 damage move with all of your Kamui damage stacking up as well. So it's a really, really crazy card, and again, makes them think twice about blocking your meteors and your grav lifts along the way, because they also have to hold the high block in case that home run comes at the end for just like their entire life total. And that's the whole attack lineup. It's a very, very standard air attack package lineup, not really tweaked in any specific ways. It's kind of just like the 6 best air attacks I feel like most of the air decks these days are playing, but I love this attack lineup so much. I feel like everything pulls its job as either a bomb, an opener, and or a flow card in a lot of really nice ways. Hey you like the My Hero Academia collectible card game, right? If the answer is at least a resounding probably, you should head right on over to unfunstuff.com for all of your MHA CCG purchasing needs. We've got the new set Heroes Clash on pre-order, as well as the new DLC 2 in stock. And if you want to use coupon code Wealthy Aspirations, you can get 5% off your entire freaking order, and also support old Levi a little bit along the way. The link for all this is going to be right down in the description below, so get on over there and go get yourself some amazing product from some amazing people. Back to the video. So now let's get on to our foundations. First, we got 2 copies of Rescue Completed. This thing is a really powerful 3-diff foundation that says we can destroy it to ready 2 face-down foundations, and then we can commit any foundation to give something -2 speed or +1 speed. So of course, when you're on those really defensive turns where you just plan on blocking everything, you're not even worried about damage reduction, you can just sit there and commit Kamui as a cost for -2 speed to everything, and then block and then ready him, and it's so strong. This is a really good card. You could be playing more of them. I really like it at 2 copies personally, but I could see a 3rd or maybe even a 4th in there. Next, for more speed reduction, we have 4 copies of Specialist of Sound. Sorry, I've only got 7 of these, the other 4 in my Eraserhead deck. But this is a really powerful foundation that says you can commit it in response to an attack being played to give it -3 speed on entry, and when you check this card as you're making a check off the top of your deck, you can reveal the next card of your deck. So really strong card, of course, -3 speed to anything for free repeatedly is just super powerful, and when you have a lot of these, it's really hard for your opponent to find an opening into you. Next, we got 4 copies of Wall Cling, very, very powerful foundation that says you can flip it, and it says if this attack is blocked, it deals no damage. So this stops stuff like throws, this stops electric jolts, float combos, all of those good things, and also just protects you from having to half block things and still take no damage, which once again, as our 20 health character, we want to be really, really conservative with our health pool. Next, we have 3 copies of my favorite Wealthy Aspirations. This is a really strong, unique foundation that says you can remove it to check out your momentum and flip one of them up, or you can respond when something goes into your momentum to flip it and charge 1 more free momentum. So I really like this card. In Meteor Shower decks, this card is simply fantastic because a random momentum is probably going to become a meteor at some point later on in the game. So it's really not like a random one. It's a really, really good momentum that you get for basically absolutely free. Next, we've got 3 copies of a newcomer to lineup, Taiyaki Fanatic. This is a really, really powerful card that did a lot of things for the air symbol in my opinion. It says response, when your rival enhances on an asset or foundation, you can destroy this card to cancel it. And then in deadlock, you can just pop it to make them discard a card. So really, really strong, a very important piece of our deadlock game plan. It's really nice to stop things like Wall Cling and damage reductions and just anything that messes with the flow of our attacks. This deck is really reliant on all of its attacks working into one another. That's just kind of how the air symbols lineups work, and you really don't want them to get messed with at all. Speaking of messing with people, we have 3 copies of Confused, another nice piece of kind of control and disruption that set 2 is given the air symbol. You can flip it to remove an attack from your rival's discard pile. Then you pick one of the keywords on that attack and remove it from the current attack. So as a 20 health character, in addition to Wall Cling, this is one of our main ways of dealing with throws. We get to remove the throw keyword from our rival's attacks. And then also just stop anything troublesome that checks for certain things. This does not stop combos because combo looks for a printed value, and it's still a printed value even if you remove the keyword. It just doesn't possess the abilities of that keyword anymore. And of course, it's nice for removing things like EX or Powerful or anything that's like really, really, really going to threaten us. Next, we have 2 copies of Shock Treatment. This is a really awesome piece of tech in this deck. It's a unique foundation that during our own attacks can trade momentum for selective committal of our rival's foundations, and then during either turn we can destroy it for a selective committal of a rival foundation. So this is really, really nice. Sometimes you end up with an excess of momentum. Maybe you haven't found your meteors and you just need to, once again, like I was saying, air, you really want all of your attacks to flow into each other properly and all do their thing. And this just really, really stops your opponent from being able to interact with a lot of your moves. So really, really, really handy piece of control. And it can be a really nice last-ditch effort defensive piece as well, again, for our very, very defensive character. Moving on to our spams, we have pretty much the most staple spam in the air symbol whatsoever. 4 copies of Destined for Mainstream Success. This thing is going to let you flip it to name a card type, reveal the top card of your deck, and if you called it right, you get to pick up that card. You just always call attack with this, and it's either going to put an attack in your hand, or show you that you have a foundation on top so that you can make more greedy plays. This card lets you play really, really, really greedy really early on, and it's probably my favorite part about it. To go in line with that, we've got 4 copies of Observant Student. This is a really, really handy card that says we can enhance, flip it to look at the top card of our deck. So once again, it goes great with Destined for Mainstream Success. If you have both of these on board, you effectively have +1 card in hand, which is very nice. And then as a deadlock enhance, if something's left your card pool, you can commit it and grab a ranged attack from the discard pile. So this is also really, 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 really strong. The only way we have to activate that is Zero Gravity Lift, so you got to keep that in mind. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Training with Gunhead. This is a nice tech piece that can go ahead and remove itself to reduce the damage of a throw attack to 2, which is super duper handy. Again, as a defensive character, we want that safety net against throws. And then if your check to play this attack was modified, you can give it +1 speed. So this only works in our deck with something like Double Jab Pummel, but that is a really key part of our attack lineup, so you do get to use that sometimes. But for the most part, this card just says throws don't get to mess with us very much. Next, we've got 2 copies of Arrogant Disposition. This is simply a 1/6 that can commit itself to give a punch -3 speed. It's mostly in here just because it's a nice low block, a nice 6 check, and it has really incidental applications against punch decks, which are pretty popular right now against things like All Might 3 and Kirishima 2. And then for our zeros, we've got 4 copies of Requesting Assistance. This card is cracked out of its mind. It is a 0/5 with a +2 mid block that can flip itself to ready any foundation that hasn't been readied. This is crazy. There's a lot of really strong applications within this, being able to, like, they play an attack, you give it -3 speed with Specialist, flip, ready your Specialist for the next attack. Really powerful. In deadlock, you can commit for Observant Student, pick up an attack, play your next attack, flip, ready the observant, commit, pick up another one because this is not once per turn. It's crazy. This card's just nuts. It's just a very, very, very free ready. And then we have 4 copies of Release. This is another insane 0 difficulty foundation. You can destroy any foundation to give your check to block this attack +2. This is crazy. This makes you so hard to kill, especially when you have multiple of these on board. Even if you have to ruin your stage, if it's at the cost of not dying, you will always take that exchange. And that, guys, is our entire foundation lineup. Now, that's not it. We do have some actions and assets that I want to go over. So the first thing we're going to go over is we've got 2 copies of Earphone Jack. This is a very powerful, unique asset that says every time you play an attack, you discard the top card of your rival's deck. Then, if the attack is a charge attack, it gets +1 speed. And then whenever your attack hits your rival, you can commit this to ready a foundation. So this is just a really, really powerful card. Again, we are a hard string deck, being able to turn all of our meteor showers into 5 highs, being able to have our 1.3s come down with extra speed. It's really nice. And then we can play a grab lift or a jolt for that guaranteed damage and that guaranteed commit and ready something. This card's really, really strong. I am always so happy to see this card really early on because I feel like it just completely changes the texture of my aggro game plan. Being able to have like +1/+1 on everything because of Kamui right at the start is just nuts, and it's only going to get stronger as the turn goes on. Then for actions, we have 4 copies of Ready, Set, Go. This is a really strong card. It has a form where you can play it and remove it to draw a card, so you can always just trade it for the top card of your deck. And then it has a really powerful response that when your rival builds their 4th foundation of the turn, you get to play this and build 2 foundations straight from your hand. So if you're going second and you open this and your rival builds 4 on their first turn, you get to play this and build 2 foundations. It's really, really, really powerful. If I'm going second, I will always hard mulligan for this. As our 7-hand size character, it is pretty easy to make sure that we see it. When you do get it off, it's just such a powerful like exchange of momentum in the game. It makes you feel like you went first when you went second, and that's really strong. And then we just have a single copy of Plus Ultra in the deck. This is a really, really nice action card that says when we block with it, we make the speed of the attack 0, so it's on a 5 because our +5 block mod. And then as the first enhance, we can play it, pitch a momentum, and double an attack speed or damage. So it's just a really, really handy card. It's kind of just like a safety net against decks that make really, really, really big, scary attacks that I don't like dealing with as my defensive 7-hand size character. And that is the entire main deck, guys. Let's go over the sideboard now. So first up in the sideboard, we have 2 characters. We've got Ochako Uraraka and we've got Hagakure Toru. So Toru is just a really strong character that can make any move a flash attack. She's basically our defensive sideboard option. Most of the time, air decks are going to defensively side into her once when they're going second. I don't actually do that most of the time because I'm Kamui Woods and I am the defensive character even going second. So she's just more of like a silver bullet type of character side for certain matchups where she's just really powerful against. There are a lot of characters in this game that don't like their moves being flashed, that are really reliant on their enhanced steps and things like that. So it's really nice to become her in those cutthroat situations. And then Ochako is simply that, hey, it's game 3. I know that I'm going first. I need to play a quick game, or I'm just really, really, really favored as the aggressor here. So I just kind of side into her as our super aggro character. She's kind of just made to attack the opponent really, really, really fast, really early on, and just hit them where it hurts before they have a chance to really stabilize. And also, if you just know that you need to play a fast game no matter what, you can always go into Ochako, and she's going to get that job done for you. The next card in our sideboard is 3 copies of Concentrate. This is a super strong card that has an ability to cancel action cards when they're played, and then if you took damage, you can just add it straight to your momentum. This is just kind of our out to things like any Tokoyamis running around, any All Might 3, or just good decks playing Capture Evildoers because we like to be able to protect our momentum, and anything running Sugar Rush, or just powerful actions in general. Most of the actions in the game right now are pretty strong, especially the ones that are played are very strong, and they have big costs, and canceling them is really, really, really powerful. And then the rest of the sideboard is just extra copies of things. We've got 2 more Gunheads for the throw decks, we've got 2 more Arrogant Disposition for the punch decks, and we have a second Plus Ultra for anything that likes to make big moves that we really need to block. And so that is the entire main deck and the sideboard. It is a tight 70 card deck with 21 attacks, so it is a little light on the attacks, but because of stuff like Meteor Shower and Double Jab Pummel, we're able to find more and more attacks. Also, we don't mind just blocking and sculpting our hand for a while as well, especially most of the time we are on the backswing when it comes to aggressing into our opponent, so we don't necessarily need to be as perfect either. The block zones are a really tight spread. We've got 28 highs, 21 mids, and 21 lows, so it's a really even distribution with a little bit more focus on the highs, because I think in this meta, high attacks are the scariest things coming at us most of the time. There are some other cards that I want to talk about why I didn't include them in the deck and my reasoning behind that. The first is Airstream Driver. I think this is a really powerful attack. I think that you could potentially play this instead of 1.3 million. The only thing is this attack is very reliant on your rival blocking your moves, and they're already incentivized to not do that because of Kamui. So when they play into it, it's really nice, but I found that 1.3 was a much more consistent bomb. Ricochet Charge is another really nice flow card as well, with a lot of cool applications within this deck, especially because most of the time they're not gonna block it and it's gonna remove itself from the card pool, so it's a really nice stun 2 setup, but it just doesn't really fit in over any of these other flow cards in the deck. Foundation-wise, Charged Up is one of my favorite air foundations, but I feel like since we're not Ochako, we can't pick up anything we add to our momentum. Most of the time, it's a bit of a greedy card. Sometimes it'll grab you that Choice Jolt or Gravity Lift to save you, and if I were going to play it because of that, I'd probably play it over something like Confused, but I appreciate the defensive applications of Confused as our defensive character a little more. Next is Short Circuit. This is also a really nice stat reset if there's not a lot of charge bombs running around in your meta, and it's something I would definitely consider siding over things like Arrogant or Gunhead, depending on what your local meta looks like. Encouraging Training Partner is of the same vein. If you've got a lot of just generic super fast moves, not as much punches or throws or things like that, side it instead of these cards. Small and Limber is another really cool addition that could be played in this deck. You do have a few ways to activate it with things like Release and things like Taiyaki Fanatic, training with Gunhead, and of course Home Run putting a foundation in, but I didn't feel like those applications were enough to warrant putting it in the deck over some of my other spams and it being a 4-check with a mid block that I didn't want. And then lastly, Sports Festival Stadium is of course a really powerful asset, but I felt like without being able to play Unwavering Slash anymore, I don't like this card as much, especially because it really invites my opponent to aggress into me while I'm still trying to set up, and I already run a lot of actions and assets, and I don't want my deck to end up clogging me when I'm trying to build foundations. And those are all of the cards in this deck that I am not playing and wanted to go over. Guys, this deck is so much fun. It's an absolute blast to play. You have a lot of the tight aggro that air decks are known for, while also being able to fall back on a really strong defense with a character like Kamui, and who really abuses a lot of the defensive applications and cards within the air symbol. This deck is so much fun to play. If you're a big fan of like tempo backswing 7-hand size characters, this is easily one of my favorites, and I think I'm going to be playing this guy for a really long time. Being able to finally play my home symbol again, air, feels so good. If you enjoyed this deck profile, please feel free to leave me a like, drop us a subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. If you like MHA CCG content, we have so much of that on this channel, and there's going to be so much more coming in the near future. And if you want to try out this deck for yourself, or if you already have, drop me a comment down below and let me know how you enjoy it and what changes you might make to more suit your playstyle. I love getting all kinds of feedback on the decks I make. That's it for today though. That's all the time I've got. I hope to see y'all in the next video. Take care.